You found Oravan Rise. That means you were chosen. You've been walking through life carrying questions that no one around you could answer. You've sat in rooms full of people and felt entirely alone, not because you were unloved, but because you were unseen. Something inside of you has always whispered that there was more to this life than what you were being shown. More than the systems, the routines, the surface-level conversations. More than the role you were expected to play. More than the rules that never made sense to your spirit. This video was meant to find you, and now that it has, stay with it until the end. You are going to hear things that may unlock doors within you that have remained closed for years. This is not just a message, it's a mirror. And if you feel called, write in the comments your warmest, most heartfelt wish, something your soul has quietly longed for. After your wish, write the number 666. That number, misunderstood by many, is not a curse here. It's the code of completion, of energy cycling back, of manifestation rooted in grounded awareness. Let this be a moment where your desire echoes into the frequency of change. Everything you've questioned, everything you've resisted, everything that made you feel out of place was never a defect. It was a compass. Your confusion was a signal that the world you were born into was not in alignment with the world you were meant to build. You weren't supposed to fit in. You were supposed to stand apart, not out of arrogance, but out of assignment. And when you begin to understand this, everything changes. The pain has a purpose. The delays had design. The loneliness was a preparation. They told you to chase goals that never resonated. They sold you a dream that always felt hollow. Success, they said, looks like obedience, looks like repetition, looks like silence. But your soul came here to disrupt, not to rebel for attention, but to remind. You are not a spectator in this life. You are a signal, a reclaimer, a bridge between what has been and what is coming. And that role? It doesn't come without resistance. This is why you felt attacked for no reason. Why you've been judged for your sensitivity. Why people feel unsettled around you, even when you haven't said a word. You carry a truth that makes illusions tremble. You carry clarity that exposes comfort zones. You carry energy that can't be explained with logic, and that frightens those still clinging to the known. But everything is beginning to make sense now, isn't it? You're starting to connect the dots, the odd timing, the patterns in your suffering, the people who were drawn to you only to drain you, the jobs that seemed promising but always fell short, the dreams that ended just when you thought you were close, all of it. It wasn't chaos, it was curation. You were being carved out, shaped, initiated, because clarity does not arrive through ease, it arrives through dismantling, through questioning everything you were taught to accept, through walking away from what no longer resonates, even when you don't yet know what lies ahead. You were never lost. You were being unplugged. And now, the veil is thinning. You've probably noticed it. The way you sense people's emotions before they speak. The way time feels like it's bending. The way your body rejects certain foods, environments, or conversations. This is not hypersensitivity. It's alignment. You are reconfiguring. And those who once walked beside you can no longer find their footing because you're vibrating at a frequency they haven't yet remembered. You've spent years wondering what was wrong with you, why you couldn't settle, why you couldn't stay where others were comfortable. But you weren't meant to settle. You weren't meant to stay. You were meant to shift. And in that shifting, you are becoming the very change others have prayed for. Yes, you. Not the celebrity. Not the guru. Not some far-off authority. You. The one who sat in silence feeling forgotten. The one who questioned everything. The one who felt too much, too often, too deep. You were never too much. You were too true for a system built on suppression. And now the truth is surfacing. In you, through you, around you. That's why people who once ignored you now watch you closely. That's why your peace feels sacred. That's why your withdrawal makes noise. Because you no longer bend your light to fit the darkness. You no longer edit your spirit to survive the room. You walk in, and the room adapts to you. It doesn't mean you dominate. It means you hold presence. You don't demand, you resonate. And the world, slowly but surely, is waking up to that resonance. You're seeing it everywhere, systems collapsing, truths emerging, souls remembering, and it's not coincidence, it's convergence. You're part of it. You are it. You've waited your whole life for things to make sense, for the suffering to translate into something beautiful, for the patterns to reveal a message. And that message is becoming clear now. You are not here to survive. You are here to shift the frequency of reality. How? Not by force, but by being. You don't need a platform. You don't need a title. You need only be unapologetically aligned with your truth. Every word you speak, every boundary you set, every time you choose peace over performance, you're rewriting the script. You're anchoring a higher code. You're activating others just by existing in your clarity. And yes, some will fear that. Some will mislabel it. Some will project their disconnection onto you. But none of that changes your role. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be undeniable. When your vibration speaks, words become optional. You are the one they didn't see coming, because you came through the cracks. Not with power wrapped in ego, but with power wrapped in presence. And now they feel it, even if they don't know what it is. That it is the remembering, the unraveling, the rising. Everything will make sense after this video, not because I said it, but because you were ready to hear it. Your soul opened just enough to let the message land. You're not being called to anything new. You're being reminded of what you've always known. That you're not broken. You're encoded. Encoded with blueprints, with memory, with light, with truth. And now, finally, with clarity. They've always told you that you needed to be fixed, that something about you wasn't quite right, that you should calm down, be quieter, move slower, think smaller. They didn't know what to do with your intensity, because your intensity carried a code, not a personality trait. A frequency, one that disturbs what is false and amplifies what is real. They tried to label it anxiety, hyper-awareness, rebellion, but they never understood that what they were witnessing was sensitivity refined into intelligence. What they called overthinking was you receiving data beyond the obvious. What they called being difficult was you refusing to betray your knowing. That knowing never came from books or institutions. It came from the parts of you that remember, from places you can't explain, from the dreams that felt more vivid than reality, from the connections that made no sense on paper but lived deep in your bones. You didn't imagine those things, you remembered them. And what you're remembering now is accelerating. Your soul is syncing with a truth you can no longer suppress. That truth is rising in your cells, in your breath, in your silence. The timing isn't random. The world is entering a period of massive energetic correction. And you are part of the recalibration. You are the signal in human form. You see it in how everything is unraveling. The lies, the narratives, the systems built on fear, they're not just collapsing from external pressure. They're collapsing because enough people, like you, stopped believing in them. Reality bends where attention flows, and you've redirected your attention back to truth. They never expected you to wake up. They thought the pressure would break you. The isolation would silence you. The rejection would cause you to conform. But instead, it taught you resilience. It sharpened your inner voice. It purified your intention. You don't want revenge. You want remembrance. And that's more dangerous than any rebellion. You don't have to fight the system to dismantle it. All you have to do is withdraw your energy. Take your magic back. Take your awareness back. Stop feeding what doesn't feed you. That simple act of disengagement collapses entire illusions. Your energy is the currency that keeps many of these programs alive. The moment you reclaim it, they begin to die. And that is exactly what's happening now. You've pulled your soul back into your body. You've stopped begging to be understood by people who were never meant to hear you. You've stopped explaining your depth to those who only skim life at the surface. You've stopped waiting for permission to be what you already are. You've stopped waiting, period. That stillness you feel isn't stagnation, it's preparation. Your path is clearing. Not because you finally forced it into alignment, but because you finally released everything that wasn't aligned. This is why the old relationships dissolved. Why the dreams you once clung to now feel foreign. Why you feel both lost and more at home than ever before. You are between worlds. The old world, which demanded your compliance. The new world, which requires your courage. You are not just transitioning between jobs or identities. You are transitioning between realities. What used to feel stable is now disintegrating. What used to feel impossible is now breathing down your neck. You are being asked to trust the unseen, not blindly, but intuitively, because your inner knowing has never been louder. It no longer whispers, it commands. It doesn't ask for your consideration. It pulls your entire being toward a new frequency. And even when your mind resists, your body knows. That sensation in your gut, that push in your chest, that tightness in your throat. These are not symptoms. They are signals. The discomfort you feel is not failure. It's friction between your old life and your true self. Every time you try to go backward, your soul stiffens. Every time you try to shrink, your spirit aches. You've outgrown the roles you once begged to be accepted into. Now, you walk away from them on purpose. That walking away is not a loss. It's a remembering. You're remembering that you don't have to stay where your light is ignored. That you don't have to explain your value to those who refuse to see it. That your presence is not a favor. It is a frequency that lifts the entire space. And if a space cannot hold that, you leave it behind. This is the clarity that was waiting for you all along. Everything is beginning to make sense because you're no longer gaslighting your own intuition. You're no longer betraying your inner voice for the sake of belonging. You've realized that the place you were trying to belong to wasn't even real. It was a projection, a program, an energetic trap designed to keep you looping. But now, you've broken the loop. This is why things feel different now. Why the air feels electric. Why your skin tingles. Why you're having spontaneous memories, random insights, emotional waves that come out of nowhere. You are being rewired. And it's not just emotional or mental, it's energetic. You are being prepared to hold more truth, more presence, more power. But not the power you once craved, not the power defined by domination or hierarchy. This is the power of alignment, of full spectrum presence, of walking into a space and requiring nothing, yet shifting everything. You are becoming that shift. You are the glitch in the system, the reminder in human form, the energy they could not suppress. And while it once felt like your clarity isolated you, now it's becoming the reason people seek you out. Not because you have answers, but because you are aligned enough to sit in the unknown without panic. That is sacred. To be okay with the mystery, to live inside the question, to breathe through the chaos without needing to control it. That's not detachment. It's sovereignty. And your sovereignty is what makes you magnetic. Not flashy, not performative, just undeniably real. And as more people awaken, they will search for what you already embody. Not status, not perfection, but a frequency that says, come home. Come home to your body, your voice, your path, your truth. Everything will make sense because you've returned to you. And when you return to you, the world begins to reorganize around your presence. There's a reason you've felt torn between two worlds, one that demands logic explanation, and conformity, and another that whispers, in moments of stillness, that you were made for something beyond understanding. The world of facts and forms never quite held your spirit. You could play the role, smile at the right times, wear the mask, but deep inside you knew you were pretending, and you hated pretending. Not because it made you weak, but because it made you invisible, because it muted the one thing inside of you that has always been real, your frequency, that undeniable pulse in your chest that says, there is more to you than this version. That voice never left. It only waited, patiently, silently, until you got tired of acting. And now you are. You're no longer interested in being digestible to people who haven't earned the right to know you. You no longer chase comfort in the arms of those who cannot hold your truth. You're no longer seduced by the validation of systems that only reward your performance. Because you've come to realize your truth is not a show, it's not decoration, it's the foundation of who you are becoming. They never taught you how to hold that kind of truth, the kind that doesn't fit into a job title, the kind that doesn't translate neatly into resumes or degrees, the kind that burns, that purifies, that magnetizes and repels with the same breath. That's what you carry now. And carrying it means you've become a lighthouse and a storm. You light the way, even as your very presence disrupts what's false. People don't know why they feel so different around you, why they confess things they've never said aloud, why they project their insecurities, why they either cling or flee. It's because you don't just walk into a room, you bring alignment into the room, and anything unaligned cannot hide in your presence. They either meet themselves through you, or they run from what they see. That's not your burden to carry anymore. You are not here to make people comfortable, you are here to make them aware. That awareness doesn't come through lecture. It comes through frequency. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to debate. Your being speaks more loudly than your words ever could. You are a living transmission now. You carry truth codes. You don't even realize how many people you've already impacted just by existing honestly, just by honoring your intuition, just by choosing silence when others choose noise, just by walking away from what once held you hostage, not in chains, but in patterns. Every time you broke a pattern, you changed the field. Every time you said no to a familiar wound disguised as a new opportunity, you strengthened the collective grid of awakening. Every time you chose stillness over reactivity, you anchored clarity in a chaotic world. You are not just doing this for yourself. You are doing it through yourself, for a future that doesn't yet have language. But you feel it. You've always felt it. That subtle pull toward the unknown, that ache in your bones when you betray your truth, that surge in your chest when you hear words that match your soul's vibration. These aren't coincidences. They're reminders. You didn't come here empty. You came here encoded. And the time to activate that code is now. That's why nothing feels the same. That's why the things that once satisfied you now taste like ash. Why the conversations you once tolerated now feel unbearable. Why the roles you played so well now feel like costumes. You're not dying. You're emerging. Your old self is falling away. Not because it was wrong, but because it was limited. You needed that version of you to survive the system. But now that you're building something new, that survival suit has become too tight. It pinches at your soul. It restricts your breath. It silences your frequency. And so, gently, but definitively, you are taking it off. Layer by layer. Expectation by expectation. Belief by belief. Until all that remains is you. Unmasked, untamed, unafraid. You are meeting yourself for the first time without the weight of programming, without the filter of fear, without the performance of perfection. And what you're finding isn't a flaw to be fixed. It's a force to be released. The force that has always been feared. They don't fear your voice. They fear the silence you carry. They don't fear your looks. They fear the eyes that see through them. They don't fear your strength. They fear the compassion that walks beside it. Because compassion that isn't rooted in fear is unstoppable. You are becoming unstoppable. Not in the sense of momentum, but in the sense of clarity. You are no longer susceptible to illusion. You no longer fall for appearances. You no longer trade your alignment for company, applause, or opportunity. Your yes now means yes. Your no now means no. And your soul no longer negotiates. This is power. Not the kind that controls, but the kind that creates. And you are creating something radical. A new way of being. A new template for leadership. For embodiment. For love. For truth. And you're doing it quietly. Without needing to convince. Without needing to prove. Just by being exactly what you are in this moment. And that is why you are dangerous to the old world. Because the old world cannot bribe you, bully you, or blind you anymore. You have seen too much, felt too much, lost too much, survived too much. And now that you've remembered, you will never unremember. Everything is starting to make sense because you're no longer in denial about what you need, about who you are, about what you came here to become. You're no longer who you were a year ago, maybe not even a month ago. You've been shedding layers faster than the world around you can process. And that's what happens when someone stops seeking and starts embodying. When you stop looking for the answers outside yourself and realize they were encoded in your soul all along. This isn't evolution, it's revelation. You're not building something new from nothing. You're uncovering what was buried beneath years of conditioning, silence, and survival. Beneath the fear, beneath the masks, beneath the roles that you played so well you almost believed they were you. Almost. But the real you, it kept breaking through. Every time you cried for reasons you couldn't explain. Every time you walked away from what made sense, but not truth. Every time you risked comfort for clarity. That was your real self clawing back to the surface, refusing to be buried any longer. And now here you are, whole but not polished, clear but still becoming, strong but scarred. You've lived 1,000 lives in one body, died to yourself more times than most people live, and yet you rise again and again, not as a repetition but as a refinement, every version stronger, cleaner, truer. That's what makes you unstoppable. Not perfection, but resilience. You've been tested by loss, tested by betrayal, tested by rejection from people you would have bled for. And every time your heart shattered, only to find a deeper rhythm underneath, a quieter wisdom, a voice that whispered, "This is not the end." And it never was. Every loss peeled something false away. Every betrayal exposed a hidden truth. Every rejection redirected you back to yourself. And now, finally, you've stopped chasing. You've stopped proving. You've stopped begging for the world to see you. Because you see yourself. And in that seeing, everything begins to align. Not easily, not all at once, but undeniably. Doors begin to close with clarity. People fall away without bitterness. Opportunities fade without panic. Because you no longer define your worth by what stays. You define it by what resonates. You've realized that just because something lasts doesn't mean it's meant for you. And just because something ends doesn't mean it failed. Endings are just truth in motion. And you are now in motion. Not running, not escaping, but moving. From your center, from your knowing, from your embodied truth. It's unsettling for people who knew the older version of you, the version that second-guessed everything, the version that said yes just to be liked, the version that held its tongue to keep the peace. That version is gone, and in its place stands someone they never expected, someone who doesn't ask for space, but is the space. Someone who doesn't match energy, but sets it. Someone who doesn't demand loyalty, but radiates presence. And presence is dangerous to those who still trade in performance. You don't need attention to validate your power anymore. You don't need followers to feel seen. You don't need a spotlight to feel significant. You are the source. And when you live from the source, you stop needing the system. This is what they don't want you to realize. That the moment you stop outsourcing your sense of self, you collapse their entire mechanism of control. That the moment you stop needing to be fixed, sold to, pacified, you become sovereign. And sovereign beings don't panic. They don't compete. They remember. And when you remember, you become ungovernable. Not lawless, but lawful in a higher sense. Aligned with a rhythm that isn't built on punishment or reward, but on truth. And truth has always been your native language. Even before you could speak it, you felt it. Even when you couldn't name it, you were searching for it. And now, you are becoming it. Not in theory, but in frequency. You don't just talk about truth. You are the experience of it. People feel it in your silence, in your boundaries, in your presence. You're not louder, you're clearer. And clarity is louder than noise could ever be. And with clarity comes resistance. Not because you are wrong, but because you are right at the threshold. Every time you evolve, you'll feel it. Those subtle pushbacks, that friction, that pull toward the old path. That is the residue of who you used to be, trying to reclaim space it no longer owns. Let it fall away. Let the grief come too. Because you're not just shedding illusions, you're letting go of the comfort they gave you. You're saying goodbye to the stories that protected you from your full power. And even though those stories limited you, they were familiar. And familiarity can feel like love when we don't yet know what love really is. But now you do. Love is not self-abandonment. Love is not sacrifice without reciprocity. Love is not keeping yourself small so others feel safe. Love is clarity. Love is expansion. Love is alignment. And the deeper you love yourself, the more unbearable it becomes to stay in spaces where your truth is denied. So you leave. Not in anger, not in pride, but in peace. Because everything makes sense now. The confusion was code. The pain was portal. The silence was sacred. And you were never broken. You were becoming. It's strange, isn't it? How after all the fire, all the unraveling, all the nights where your soul felt like it was dissolving inside your skin, what remains is peace. Not the peace they sold you, the kind that comes from avoidance or obedience, but a deeper peace, a peace born from knowing. You know now. That's what's different. You don't need proof. You don't need applause. You don't need others to confirm what your bones have always held. The truth is living inside you now, not as an idea, but as structure, as breath, as rhythm, and it moves through everything you do. They don't know how to respond to this version of you, the one who doesn't flinch, the one who doesn't chase, the one who hears the chaos but doesn't dance to it anymore. You're no longer reacting to everything. You're responding, with precision, with stillness, with command. And stillness is the ultimate rebellion. The world has been trained to fear silence, to fill it with noise, movement, performance. But your silence is different. It is not emptiness, it is a statement, a mirror, a pulse that says, I no longer belong to the program. That's why you're met with confusion. They don't understand why you're calm in moments they would collapse, why you smile when they expect apology, why you walk away without burning the bridge, because your movement is no longer emotional, it's energetic. You feel when something's off now, not hours later, instantly. And instead of doubting yourself, you trust the signal. You feel the resistance. You feel the contraction. You feel the subtle closing of your body. That's all the information you need. You don't need to argue. You don't need to win. You don't even need to explain. You exit, cleanly, clearly, quietly. This is mastery, and mastery is rare, because mastery requires solitude, integrity, depth. You've stopped trying to be impressive. You've started becoming integrated, every part of you aligned, every action rooted, every word deliberate. You're not performing anymore. You're being, and being terrifies those who still perform, because the ones who live for the stage cannot understand the one who finds power in presence. They don't know what to do with your frequency. It can't be manipulated. It can't be mirrored. It can't be stolen. Because it's not something you wear. It's something you are. Your energy now speaks louder than your voice. It enters rooms before you do. It lingers long after you leave. And it speaks a language older than words. It says, I remember. I remember who I am. I remember why I came. I remember what I survived. I remember what I buried to survive. And now I rise with that memory stitched into my soul. You are no longer afraid of the dark. You walked through it, sat in it, let it swallow you, and instead of killing you, it clarified you. You learned that light isn't something you chase, it's something you become. You have become it. Not the blinding light of performance, but the steady flame of truth. The kind that doesn't demand attention but draws it anyway. Not because it yells, but because it resonates. And resonance cannot be faked. That's why your presence feels so different now. You've stopped playing the game. You've stopped seeking the crown. You are the throne. You don't need to be crowned. You were born chosen. The world just convinced you to forget. But that forgetting served a purpose. It humbled you. It matured you. It allowed you to walk through the world without arrogance. Because you didn't arrive at this clarity through theory. You earned it. Through grief. Through loss. Through surrender. Through staying awake in moments that begged you to go numb. Now you walk with reverence. Not for titles, but for truth. Everything makes sense because you've stopped making excuses for what doesn't. You no longer force what feels heavy. You no longer beg for crumbs when your soul knows it is bread. You no longer kneel at altars that demand your silence. You are the altar now, and those who come to you must come with truth in their hands and honesty in their hearts. Or they will find themselves exposed, not by judgment, but by your clarity. Your energy does not punish, it reveals, and what is revealed must either rise or run, and many will run. Because your light isn't just beautiful, it's honest. It doesn't flatter. It remembers. It sees through the charm. It pierces the pretense. It recognizes what is hidden even in the most decorated disguises. Because you know what it means to hide. You did it for years. You smiled when you were aching. You performed when you were exhausted. You stayed when you were starving for more. So you don't judge the ones who hide. You see them. You love them. But you no longer join them. You've stepped out of hiding. And when you do that, everything around you changes. Some will follow you into the light. Others will try to drag you back into the dark. But you don't bend anymore. You don't contort. You don't explain your expansion to those who are committed to their contraction. You let them go. You let them talk. You let them misunderstand. And then, you move forward anyway. Because this is your life now. Not the borrowed life. Not the half-lived life. Not the life of waiting and wondering. This is the life where you own yourself. Fully. Fiercely. Finally. And in that ownership, the war ends. The war within you. The war between the self you were taught to be and the self you actually are. There is no more fight, no more division, just clarity. And from that clarity, peace. The kind of peace that says, I don't need to be liked. I need to be true. I don't need to win. I need to be free. I don't need to know what's next. I just need to honor what is now. That is your alignment. And from that alignment, everything begins to bend in your favor. Not because you demand it, but because you match it. You're no longer chasing miracles. You've become one. If this message found you, let it rest in your spirit. Until we meet again, stay awake, stay chosen,